What if I told you that the average person has enough time to read War and Peace 3 times every single month? You'd probably think I'm crazy, right? But here's the shocking truth. We spend 3 hours daily binge watching Netflix, yet we convince ourselves we don't have time to read even one book. Today, I'm about to shatter everything you believe about reading. This isn't about speed reading tricks or finding magical extra hours in your day. This is about understanding how your mind actually works and building a system so natural that non-ought reading will feel stranger than reading. Let me share something that completely transformed my relationship with books. Most people approach reading like they're trying to climb Mount Everest. They set these massive, intimidating goals, clear entire weekends, stock up on books like they're preparing for hibernation. But then reality hits. Life gets messy. Motivation crumbles. And those beautiful books become expensive paperweights gathering dust on your shelf. But what if I told you there's a completely different way? What if reading a book a week wasn't about superhuman discipline or finding more time, but about making reading as inevitable as brushing your teeth? Think about your morning routine for a second. You don't wake up and have an internal debate about whether to brush your teeth. You don't negotiate with yourself about taking a shower. These actions happen automatically because you've built the right systems around them. Your environment makes these decisions for you. And that's exactly what we're going to do with reading. Find the fatal flaw in traditional reading advice. Here's where most reading advice completely falls apart. They tell you to read faster, to force yourself to focus harder, to push through the mental resistance, like some kind of literary warrior. But here's the thing, trying to solve a system's problem with raw willpower is like trying to fix a broken engine by pressing harder on the gas pedal. It doesn't work, and it'll leave you exhausted. Let me reveal 3 fundamental truths that will change everything. First, your reading habit isn't a reflection of your motivation, it's a reflection of your environment. Second, small, consistent actions will always demolish sporadic, heroic efforts. And third, the best reading system is the one you'll actually use, not the one that looks impressive on paper. Now, let me destroy the biggest myth about reading more books. Pi the 30-page revolution. Everyone believes you need these long, uninterrupted blocks of time to read effectively. Books aren't built in marathons. They're built page by page, moment by moment. And this is where the magic happens. The average book contains about 240 pages. If you read just 30 pages every single day, you'll naturally complete a book every 8 days. But here's what's fascinating. The real power isn't in the math, it's in the psychology behind it. When your brain sees, read an entire book, it creates massive resistance. It's like trying to eat an entire wedding cake in one sitting. Your mind rebels against the enormity of it. But 30 pages, that's just a slice. Manageable, digestible, almost inevitable. Most people can read 30 pages in about 45 minutes. But here's where it gets really interesting. You don't need those 45 minutes all at once. Your day is actually filled with perfect reading moments that you've been blind to. Picture this: 10 pages with your morning coffee while your brain is fresh and alert. 5 pages during your lunch break when you need a mental reset. 15 pages before bed as your natural wind down ritual. Suddenly, 30 pages isn't just achievable, it's practically automatic. But there's something even more powerful happening here. Every single time you complete your 30 pages, you're not just reading, you're building unshakable proof of what's possible. Each day adds another layer of evidence that you are, in fact, a consistent reader. You're literally rewiring your identity. Quite environmental architecture. Making reading inevitable, your environment is making thousands of micro decisions for you every single day, whether you realize it or not. And once you understand this principle, everything about reading more becomes remarkably simple. Consider what happens in a typical evening. You sink into your favorite chair and your hand naturally reaches for something. But what is it reaching for? Is it reaching for a book? Or is it reaching for your phone? This isn't really a choice you're actively making. It's a decision your environment has already made for you. Every single space in your life is either working for your reading goals or working against them. Think of your environment as a subtle but persistent force, like gravity. It's either pulling you toward reading or away from it, and right now, you're going to learn how to create reading gravity. The first principle is what I call the 20-second rule. Make reading 20 seconds easier to start than any competing activity, and make distractions 20 seconds harder to access. Here's how this works in the real world. Place your current book on your nightstand, already open to your bookmark, with your reading glasses right beside it if you need them. Now, reading requires zero setup time. Meanwhile, put your phone charger in another room. You've just created environmental friction that works entirely in your favor. The second principle is visual invitation. Your brain is constantly scanning your environment for cues about what to do next. When you walk into a room, certain objects seem to call out to you like old friends. We're going to make books your environmental anchors. Create reading stations throughout your space. A comfortable chair with perfect lighting and a side table in your living room. A peaceful corner in your kitchen for morning reading sessions. A book stand at your desk for lunch break reading. Each station becomes a visual trigger that whispers, "This is a place for reading." But here's what transforms this from helpful to systematic. The third principle, parallel processing. Place different types of books at different stations. Light, entertaining reads in the kitchen. Deep learning material at your desk. Enjoyable fiction by your favorite chair. Now your environment isn't just supporting reading, it's supporting the right kind of reading at the right time. Remember this fundamental truth: willpower doesn't create lasting habits, environments do. You don't need more motivation to read. You need an environment that makes reading the path of least resistance. Time alchemy. Transforming dead time into gold. Let me completely change the way you think about time. Most people believe they need to find more time to read, but what if I told you that you're already surrounded by perfect reading moments? You just haven't learned to recognize them yet. These are what I call transition moments, the spaces between your main activities. Most people see these as interruptions or dead time, but they're actually the hidden framework that holds your entire day together. Think about your typical day. You wake up and there's that moment before you check your phone. There's the transition between finishing breakfast and starting work. The pause between meetings, the gap between arriving home and starting dinner. These aren't interruptions, they're opportunities disguised as emptiness. We're going to create reading bridges across these transition moments. Each bridge connects one part of your day to another, with reading as the natural path between them. You're not just placing books randomly, you're building a reading infrastructure throughout your day. Here's where the magic happens. Once you start seeing these moments differently, something remarkable occurs in your brain. Waiting times become opportunities. Transitions become invitations. Even traffic becomes a gift when you have an audiobook ready. You're no longer finding time to read, reading is finding you. This is the heart of time alchemy. We're not creating new time, we're transforming the time we already have. And once you master this principle, reading a book a week isn't just possible, it becomes inevitable. Quite fee, the multiplier effect. Why one book at a time is limiting you. What I'm about to share might seem completely counterintuitive at first. Most people believe you should only read one book at a time, but this common belief is actually holding you back from becoming a truly effective reader. Think about how you consume other media. You probably follow several TV series at once, a drama for emotional depth, a comedy for light entertainment, maybe a documentary for learning. Your brain handles these multiple storylines effortlessly, switching between them based on your mood and mental state. Reading works exactly the same way. Different types of books serve different mental states. Sometimes your mind craves deep, challenging material. Other times it needs lighter engagement. Sometimes you want to learn, sometimes you want to escape. By having multiple books available, you're always ready to match your reading choice to your current mental energy. But the real magic happens in what I call cross-pollination. Ideas from one book begin to illuminate concepts in another. Patterns emerge across different subjects. Your mind naturally creates connections you might have missed otherwise. It's like having multiple conversations happening simultaneously, each one enriching the others. Here's how to implement this effectively. Start with 3 books, one for growth, one for knowledge, and one for pleasure. This isn't about reading them all simultaneously, it's about having the right book available for your current mental state. Think of it like having conversations with different friends. Each friend brings out a different aspect of your personality, serves a different need in your life. Your reading ecosystem works the same way. When you remove the pressure to finish one book before starting another, you actually end up finishing more books because you're always reading the right book for your current state of mind. Focus architecture. Creating deep reading states. Most people believe focus is something you either have or you don't, like height or eye color. But focus isn't a trait you're born with. It's a condition you create. And once you understand this, deep reading becomes remarkably simple. Consider what's happening right now as you try to focus. Your attention is like a spotlight in a room full of shiny objects. Each notification, each open browser tab, each unfinished task is competing for that spotlight. No wonder maintaining focus feels like such an exhausting struggle. But here's this shift in perspective that changes everything. Focus doesn't come from trying harder to concentrate. It comes from removing the competition for your attention. Remember those reading stations we created earlier? Now we're going to transform them into attention sanctuaries. The first principle is sensory simplification. Every sensation your brain processes takes precious energy away from reading. So we're going to build what I call a focus tunnel. Start with your visual environment. Position your reading light to create a natural spotlight effect on your book. The surrounding area should be slightly dimmer, not dark, but just enough to create a visual pathway for your attention. You're not just lighting a book, you're creating a visual guide for your focus. Next, we address what I call attention architecture. Your phone isn't just a device, it's an attention magnet with the power of 1,000 televisions. So we create device distance. The further your phone is from your reading station, the easier it becomes to maintain deep focus. It's not about willpower, it's about physics. We're also going to use focus anchors, specific elements that signal to your brain it's time for deep reading. A particular reading posture that becomes associated with focus, a special type of tea that your brain connects with reading time. Even a unique bookmark that marks not just your page, but the transition into reading mode. Now watch how this combines with our time alchemy. Those transition moments we identified earlier become focus preparation periods. The 2 minutes before you start reading aren't dead time, they're your mental runway for launching into deep focus. The depth of your focus isn't determined in the moment you start reading. It's determined by how you've designed your environment minutes, hours, and even days before. You're not building focus, you're removing everything that disrupts it. I-Fee retention revolution. From passive reading to active learning, most people believe memory works like a camera, capturing perfect snapshots of information. But your mind actually works more like an artist, creating connections between ideas and painting pictures with meaning. Once you understand this, retention becomes natural rather than forced. Think about a meaningful conversation you had with a close friend last week. You probably remember the key points effortlessly. You weren't taking notes or trying to memorize anything. You remember because you were fully engaged in the conversation, creating meaning through interaction. Reading can work exactly the same way. When you create an active dialogue with your books, your mind naturally builds connections and patterns. Let me show you how to transform passive reading into active learning. The first layer is mental noting. As you read, simply notice when something surprises you, confuses you, or connects to something you already know. You're not forcing anything, just maintaining gentle awareness. Here's how this works in practice. When you encounter an interesting idea, pause for just a moment. Let your mind naturally connect it to your own experience. You're not memorizing facts, you're creating meaning through personal connection. The second layer is conversational reading. Imagine you're having a friendly debate with the author. When they make a point, ask yourself, do I agree? Why or why not? What examples from my own life support or challenge this idea? You're transforming reading from a one-way information download into a two-way conversation. Here's how to make it even more powerful. We're going to use connection points. Every time you finish a reading session, take just 30 seconds to connect what you've just read to something you already know. You're building bridges between new information and existing knowledge. This is where our multiple book strategy becomes even more effective. When you're reading several books, your mind naturally begins to see patterns across different subjects. A concept from your psychology book illuminates an idea in your business reading. A historical example clarifies a modern principle. These connections become your strongest retention tools. Remember, retention isn't about forcing information into your memory, like stuffing cloves into an overpacked suitcase. It's about creating an environment where forgetting becomes difficult because everything you read connects to something you already know. FAFI Implementation Engine, from knowledge to real-world results. Here's where we transform reading from a passive activity into a powerful engine for real-world change. Most people treat books as entertainment or information collection, but what if every book you read could create measurable improvements in your life? Think about the last time you learned something that immediately changed your behavior. It probably wasn't from passively consuming information. It was from experiencing a direct connection between knowledge and results. We're going to create that same connection with everything you read. Instead of waiting until you finish a book to think about implementation, you're going to create action bridges as you read. Each reading session becomes a catalyst for immediate change. Every time you encounter a useful idea, ask yourself one simple question. What's the smallest step I could take to test this concept right now? Notice I said, smallest step, not biggest impact. We're building momentum, not trying to revolutionize your life overnight. Watch how this transforms your reading experience. When you read about a productivity technique, immediately identify one specific task you could apply it to today. When you discover a communication strategy, think of one conversation where you could use it within the next 24 hours. You're not just collecting ideas, you're creating immediate evidence that they work. This is where our multiple book strategy reveals another layer of brilliance. Each book becomes a different testing ground for ideas. Your business book suggests a decision-making framework. Your psychology book helps you understand why it works. Your biography shows you how someone else used it successfully. You're not just learning from multiple sources, you're implementing from multiple angles. We're going to create what I call evidence loops. Every time you implement something from your reading, take 30 seconds to note the result. You're building a personal database of what actually works for you, not just what sounds good in theory. This creates a fascinating cycle. The more you implement, the more evidence you collect. The more evidence you collect, the more confidence you build. The more confidence you build, the more likely you are to implement new ideas. Reading becomes a self-reinforcing engine of growth. Quapi Progress Architecture. Tracking what really matters. Most people focus on counting books or pages read, but true progress isn't about quantity. It's about the expanding ripples of change in your life. Think about how you naturally track things that matter to you. You don't need a complex system to remember if you enjoyed a meal or if a conversation went well. Your mind naturally tracks what creates value. We're going to work with this natural tendency, not against it. Instead of tracking reading as an isolated activity, we're going to create what I call progress constellations. Each book you read becomes the center of a network of visible changes. Every time you implement an idea, you create a visible marker of change. These markers become breadcrumbs of your progress, showing you not just how much you've read, but how much you've grown. What does this look like in practice? When you test a new concept from your reading, take 30 seconds to capture 3 things: what you tried, what happened, and what you learned. You're not just tracking actions, you're creating a map of your growth. We're going to use progress loops. Each successful implementation naturally leads to deeper questions. These questions guide your next reading choices. This is where our multiple book strategy reveals another layer of power. Each book's impact starts connecting with others. A productivity technique combines with a psychology insight. A leadership principle illuminates a historical pattern. You're not just tracking separate pieces of progress, you're watching a web of understanding grow. Here's what most people miss entirely. Progress isn't linear like climbing stairs. It's more like tending a garden. Some seeds sprout quickly, others take time to germinate. But everything you plant contributes to the overall ecosystem. You don't need to measure everything to see your progress. You just need to notice the changing landscape of your life. Quappy momentum mastery, creating unstoppable forward motion, we've built each piece of an extraordinary system. Now, it's time to watch them create something greater than the sum of their parts. Here's how momentum really works in reading. Think about pushing a car. The hardest part isn't keeping it moving. It's getting it to move in the first place. Reading works exactly the same way, and we've been building momentum from the very beginning. Look at how each element creates forward motion. Our reading stations remove the friction of getting started. Our time alchemy found spaces where reading naturally fits. Our focus tunnels made deep engagement inevitable. Each element reduces resistance while increasing forward momentum. But here's where it becomes truly powerful. These elements create momentum loops. When you read in your morning station, you're not just reading, you're strengthening neural pathways that make tomorrow's reading even easier. Each action reinforces every other action. Your environmental design makes focus natural, which makes implementation easier, which creates visible progress, which motivates more reading. You're not just building habits, you're creating a self-sustaining system. Here's what transforms this from powerful to unstoppable: momentum stacking. Each book you read doesn't just add to your knowledge, it creates new connections that make the next book more valuable. Think about how this works. A psychology book helps you understand how habits form, which helps you implement ideas from your productivity reading more effectively, which gives you insights that make your leadership reading more practical. Each book becomes a lens that makes other books more powerful. This is why our multiple book strategy is so crucial. You're not just reading several books. You're creating a network of understanding that grows exponentially. Each connection multiplies the value of everything you read. Momentum isn't about speed. It's about the compounding effect of aligned actions. Every page you read, every idea you implement, every connection you make, they all work together to create unstoppable forward motion. You now have everything you need: the systems, the strategies, the understanding. But remember this above all else: the journey of reading isn't about reaching a destination. It's about becoming someone who grows a little bit stronger, a little bit wiser every single day. The person who can read a book a week isn't someone with superhuman discipline or unlimited time. It's someone who understands that small systems create extraordinary results. It's someone who has learned to work with their mind instead of against it. It's someone who has discovered that reading isn't something you find time for, it's something that finds you. Now go build your momentum and transform not just how you read, but who you become. If this completely changed how you think about reading, smash that like button and let me know in the comments which strategy you're going to try first. And if you want more life-changing content like this, hit subscribe, because we're just getting started on this journey of transformation together.